The notification sound from my phone that Tuesday morning would forever mark the moment my life split into before and after. I never imagined that a simple banking alert would unravel years of manipulation and reveal the true nature of the people I called family. I was sitting in my downtown Chicago apartment, working on a logo design for a boutique hotel client, when my phone buzzed with an urgent email from Chase Bank. Suspicious transaction alert, $50,000 wire transfer pending. My hands trembled as I read the message twice. Then 3 times. $50,000. Nearly half of my savings account? Gone. My first instinct was panic, followed immediately by confusion. I hadn't authorized any transfer. I grabbed my phone and dialed the bank's customer service line, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. After navigating through an endless phone tree, I finally reached a representative. Miss Vance, I see the transaction you're referring to, the woman said in a professional but cautious tone. The transfer is currently being processed per your guardian's request. You'll need to visit our downtown branch to verify your identity and discuss this matter with the branch manager. Guardian. The word hit me like ice water. I'm sorry. What guardian? I'm 28 years old. I don't have a guardian. According to our records, Mr. Richard Vance has been designated as your financial guardian due to... Let me see here. Concerns about your mental capacity to manage your own affairs. The phone nearly slipped from my shaking hands. My father. My own father had somehow convinced the bank that I was mentally incompetent. Without another word, I hung up, grabbed my keys, and raced down to the parking garage. The Chase branch on LaSalle Street was bustling with the usual Tuesday morning crowd. I pushed through the revolving doors and immediately spotted them. Through the glass walls of the branch manager's office, I could see my parents sitting calmly across from a man in a navy suit. My father, Richard, was leaning forward earnestly, gesturing toward a thick manila folder on the desk. My mother, Eleanor, sat beside him with her hands folded, wearing that practiced expression of concerned motherhood that I now realized had always been a performance. I couldn't hear their conversation clearly through the glass, but I caught fragments. Cognitive decline, erratic behavior, for her own safety. Each phrase felt like a physical blow. Richard was sliding documents across the desk to the branch manager, his movements smooth and confident. This wasn't spontaneous. This had been planned. I didn't knock. I simply pushed open the glass door and stepped into the office. The conversation stopped abruptly. My parents turned toward me with expressions that cycled rapidly from surprise to calculation. Richard recovered first, his face arranging itself into that familiar mask of paternal concern. Rebecca. Sweetheart. What are you doing here? His voice carried that tone he'd always used when he thought I was being difficult. Patient, but with an underlying edge of control. I ignored him completely and looked directly at the branch manager, whose nameplate read David Morrison. The $50,000 transfer. Who authorized it? And who exactly is claiming to be my guardian? Mr. Morrison glanced nervously between me and the folder Richard had given him. I could see him trying to reconcile the composed, articulate woman standing before him with whatever picture my parents had painted. Before he could respond, I reached across the desk and grabbed the manila folder. The documents inside made my blood run cold. The top sheet was titled Emergency Guardianship Petition and bore what appeared to be my signature, though I knew I had never signed such a document. Beneath it was a psychiatric evaluation from Dr. Dollars. Harrison Finch, a man I had never met, declaring me mentally unstable and unable to manage my own financial affairs. This is fraud, I said, my voice steady despite the rage building in my chest. This signature is forged, and I've never seen this doctor in my life. Richard stood up quickly, reaching for the folder. Rebecca, you're not thinking clearly. You need help, and we're trying to provide it. His voice was rising, the careful facade beginning to crack. The only help I need is protection from you. I shot back, clutching the folder tighter. What happened next felt like it occurred in slow motion. Richard lunged forward, trying to grab the documents from my hands. You don't understand what you're doing, he said through gritted teeth. I understand perfectly, I said, stepping backward toward the door. You're stealing from me. The commotion had drawn the attention of other bank employees. Mr. Morrison was on his feet now, looking uncomfortable with the scene unfolding in his office. I could see a security guard approaching through the glass walls, using the chaos to my advantage. I clutched the folder to my chest and pushed past my parents toward the door. "This isn't over," Richard called after me. But I was already moving through the main lobby of the bank, past the tellers and customers, and out into the crisp Chicago morning. In my car, hands still shaking, I called my best friend Chloe. She answered on the first ring. "Rebecca, you sound terrible." "What's wrong?" "Chloe, I need your help. My parents are trying to steal my money, and they're claiming I'm mentally incompetent. I need you to help me protect everything. Send me pictures of every document you have right now," Chloe said, her voice immediately shifting into the focused tone she used in her cybersecurity job. "Don't go home. Come to my place. I'm going to lock down everything electronically while you drive over." Chloe lived in a converted loft in Wicker Park, about 20 minutes from downtown. During the drive, my phone buzzed constantly with notifications as she worked her magic. By the time I reached her building, she had already changed all my passwords, enabled two-factor authentication on every account, and placed fraud alerts with all 3 credit reporting agencies. "Your instincts were right," she said as I walked into her apartment. My face streaked with tears. I hadn't realized I'd been crying. "I found some irregularities in your trust fund account going back years. Small withdrawals, always just under the threshold that would trigger automatic notifications. Someone with access has been skimming money for a long time. The trust fund. I had almost forgotten about it. My grandfather had established it when I was born, with my father as the trustee until I turned 30. I had always assumed the quarterly statements he sent me were accurate, never thinking to verify them independently. "We need a lawyer," Chloe said. "I have someone in mind. Marcus Thorne. He specializes in financial elder abuse and family fraud. I'm calling him right now." Marcus Thorne's office was located in a sleek high-rise in the Loop. When we met with him that afternoon, he reviewed the documents I had taken from the bank with the careful attention of someone who had seen this kind of manipulation before. "This is textbook financial abuse," he said, looking up from the forged psychiatric evaluation. "The good news is that they've been sloppy. The bad news is that they won't stop here. When people go to these lengths, they're usually desperate, which makes them dangerous." He was right. Over the next few days, my parents escalated their campaign in ways I hadn't anticipated. First, they targeted my work. Richard began calling my clients, suggesting that I was having personal difficulties and might not be able to complete their projects. My biggest client, a chain of luxury hotels, called to express their concern and put our contract on hold until things stabilized. The implication was clear. My own father was willing to destroy my reputation and livelihood to maintain control. Then they invaded my personal space. On Thursday evening, I returned to my apartment to find them in the lobby with a locksmith. They told the building superintendent that they were concerned for my safety and needed to check on me. When I refused to let them in, they actually had the audacity to have the locks changed on my own apartment door. I had to call the police to have them removed from the building and the locks changed back. But it was Eleanor's text messages that proved to be the most insidious. Throughout this ordeal, she continued to send me messages that combined emotional manipulation with gaslighting. "Honey, we only want what's best for you. Why are you doing this to our family? Your father is heartbroken that you won't let us help you." Each message was designed to make me doubt my own perceptions and feel guilty for protecting myself. Meanwhile, Chloe had been conducting her own investigation into Dr. Clay Finch, the psychiatrist who had supposedly evaluated me. What she found was damning. Dr. Finch had significant gambling debts and had recently received a large payment from a consulting company that, upon further investigation, was controlled by my father. The timeline was perfect. Richard had paid off Finch's debts just 2 weeks before my supposed psychiatric evaluation was dated. Marcus also discovered the extent of my father's embezzlement from my trust fund. Over the past 6 years, he had systematically withdrawn nearly $200,000 in small increments, always careful to stay below the amounts that would trigger automatic reviews. The emergency guardianship wasn't just about control. It was about covering up years of theft and positioning himself to take the remaining $300,000. Armed with this evidence, Marcus reached out to Mr. Morrison at the bank, initially reluctant to get involved. Morrison became more cooperative when Marcus pointed out that the bank's acceptance of forged documents could expose them to significant liability. Morrison agreed to provide testimony about my parents' behavior during their visit to the bank. 2 weeks after that terrible Tuesday morning, Richard officially filed his guardianship petition with the Cook County Probate Court. The hearing was scheduled for the following Friday. The courtroom was smaller than I had expected, with wood paneling that gave it a formal, old-fashioned atmosphere. Richard had hired an expensive lawyer, a silver-haired man named Peterson, who presented their case with polished professionalism. They painted a picture of me as an unstable young woman who was paranoid, making poor financial decisions, and in need of protection from myself. Dr. Finch took the stand and testified about my supposed mental state, describing symptoms and behaviors that were complete fabrications. He spoke with clinical authority about my episodes and declining cognitive function, all based on an examination that had never taken place. When it was Marcus's turn, he methodically dismantled their case piece by piece. First, he called Mr. Morrison to testify about what he had witnessed at the bank. Morrison described the calculated, coordinated nature of my parents' behavior, how they had clearly rehearsed their story and come prepared with documents. He testified that when I arrived, I appeared completely rational and coherent, quite different from the picture they had painted. Then Marcus cross-examined Dr. Finch. Under pressure, faced with evidence of his gambling debts and the suspicious payment from Richard's company, Finch's composure crumbled. Within minutes, he admitted to falsifying the psychiatric evaluation without ever having met me. Finally, Marcus presented the evidence of Richard's embezzlement. Bank records showed the pattern of unauthorized withdrawals from my trust fund over 6 years. The amounts, the timing, the careful structuring to avoid detection, it all painted a clear picture of systematic theft. When Marcus finished presenting our case, he asked if I wanted to make a statement. I stood up, my legs surprisingly steady, and looked directly at my parents. For years, I believed that love meant accepting whatever treatment someone gave you, even when that treatment was harmful. I began. I thought that being a good daughter meant never questioning, never setting boundaries, never putting my own well-being first. But what you've done isn't love. It's control disguised as care, and theft disguised as protection. I paused, seeing Eleanor dab at her eyes with a tissue in what I now recognized as a performance for the judge. You've spent years conditioning me to doubt my own perceptions, to feel guilty for wanting autonomy, to believe that I was somehow selfish for wanting to live my own life. But I'm done accepting that narrative. I'm done being the victim in the story you've written about our family. The judge's decision was swift and decisive. Not only did he deny the guardianship petition, but he also ordered a criminal investigation into Richard and Eleanor for fraud, forgery, and perjury. Dr. Finch's medical license was suspended pending review by the state board. Marcus helped me file a civil lawsuit to remove Richard as trustee of my fund and to recover the money he had stolen. The case was settled within 2 months, with Richard agreeing to repay the full amount plus interest and legal fees. His assets were frozen during the investigation, and both he and Eleanor eventually pled guilty to reduced charges in exchange for probation and restitution. 6 months later, I was standing in the empty space that would become my new design studio in River North. Using the money from my trust fund money that was finally, truly mine, I had decided to start my own company. My clients, once they learned the truth about what had happened, not only returned but brought referrals with them. Word spread in the design community about what I had endured and overcome, and somehow that story of survival became part of my professional reputation in the best possible way. Chloe arrived that afternoon carrying a bottle of champagne and wearing a huge grin. "This place is perfect," she said, looking around at the large windows and exposed brick walls. "You're going to build something amazing here." As we stood together looking out at the Chicago skyline, I realized that the woman who had walked into that bank 6 months ago no longer existed. That woman had been shaped by fear, conditioned to seek approval, trained to doubt her own instincts. The woman I had become was different. She knew her worth wasn't determined by other people's opinions. She understood that love without respect was just another form of control. She had learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from people who refuse to see your value. "You know what the strangest part is?" I said to Chloe as we opened the champagne. "I thought standing up to them would destroy our family. But the truth is, we never had a real family to begin with. We had a system built on manipulation and control. What I destroyed wasn't our family, it was the illusion that had been keeping me trapped. Chloe raised her glass. To new beginnings built on truth instead of lies. To new beginnings, I agreed. And as I looked out at the city spread before us, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, complete freedom to choose my own path. The legal battles were over. But more importantly, the internal battle was won. I had learned that healing doesn't always look like reconciliation. Sometimes it looks like walking away. Sometimes it looks like choosing yourself when no one else will. Sometimes it looks like building something entirely new from the ground up. My parents had taught me that love was conditional, that my worth was determined by my usefulness to others, that questioning authority was a character flaw. But they had also, inadvertently, taught me something else, that I was stronger than they ever wanted me to believe, that I deserved better than they were willing to give, and that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to accept anything less than what you deserve. As the sun set over Chicago that evening, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I made a promise to myself. I would never again mistake control for care, manipulation for love, or someone else's comfort for my own well-being. I had learned that the most important relationship I would ever have was the one with myself, and that relationship would be built on respect, truth, and the unwavering belief that I deserved nothing less than authentic love. The woman who had been afraid to speak up, afraid to set boundaries, afraid to trust her own instincts, was gone. In her place stood someone who knew her worth and refused to negotiate it down for anyone's comfort. Someone who understood that real family isn't about blood or obligation, but about mutual respect and genuine care. Someone who had learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to be grateful for crumbs when you deserve the whole meal. That evening, as I locked up my new studio and walked home through the bustling streets of Chicago, I felt something I had never experienced before, complete ownership of my own life. Every decision from this point forward would be mine to make. Every boundary would be mine to set. Every relationship would be one I chose, not one I endured out of obligation or fear. I had gone from being someone who happened to me to being someone who happened to the world. And that, I realized, made all the pain worthwhile.